We were up at Parks, Arizona with our dog and visiting some friends and just kind of enjoying the weather, fresh air. And we came down and I had a little headache that morning when we were coming down. Took a couple of aspirin and it went away. And then Bud went to work and I came to lunch to go have lunch with him at Jason's Deli, which is not far from where he worked. And I just told him I have a headache. I just remember putting my head down on the desk and saying, I think I need to go to the hospital, which is so unlike me, just that I would have that kind of a headache or even say something like that. So he did, he took me, and really that's quite all I remember.
She came to pick me up at lunch, and when she did, it was noticeably different, more intense for her. She laid her head down on the desk, and as I was finishing up a phone call, and so she said, well, maybe it's because I haven't had anything to eat. So we went over to Jason's Deli and ordered a pastrami sandwich, and she said, my ears feel like they're filling up with fluid. And so she said at that time, take me to the hospital. And as we drove away, she said, no, call my doctor. So we called the doctor, and he said, there's an urgent care right there at 59th and Union Hills. Why don't you take her in there? So when we did, her blood pressure was just off the map, and they told me to take her to the hospital. As I drove out to take her to the hospital, she went unconscious. So I whipped around and went right back into urgent care, and they called an ambulance, and they took her to Arrowhead Hospital. The main thing they were doing there was just trying to assess what was happening, what was going on. And the doctor, the emergency room doctor came in, and his feeling was that it was an aneurysm, and that they would have to put a little drill tube on the top of her head. The main thing was that they wanted to get her to Baptist Hospital, where the experts there could take care of her, which was Dr. Sapphire. So when we got to Baptist Hospital, Dr. Sapphire came out. He said that there was it was a pretty significant bleed, and that it was going to, it just didn't look good for her.
When Dr. Sapphire talked to my dad, I was in the waiting room with the rest of the family. I think it was good for him to handle it, and he didn't really tell the rest of the family, like, she might have a 10% chance of living after this. And I think that's good, because it gave everyone hope to see past what was going on.
Dr. Sapphire came out, explained to me what we were going to have to do, and it was going to take place the next morning. They did put a little drainage tube on her top of her head to relieve the pressure as far as the bleed was concerned, and the next morning they were going to do what they could do as far as the aneurysm was concerned. He didn't come out and talk to me during the procedure, but after the procedure was done, you know, he had a smile on his face and said, you know, I'm pleasantly surprised on how she did. From then, you know, the next 3 days were critical, and that her chances, again, were not high that she would make it past the next 3 days.
I was in a coma for 3 weeks, probably there 6 weeks. And I think I was in very good hands. I remember speaking to Dr. Sapphire about 5 weeks after it was all over with, after I was home. And he held my hand and he was rubbing my hand saying, you're such a miracle, you're such a miracle. You know, I can't believe you. I knew that most people died from what I went through. I knew I was in good hands. I knew I was taken care of. I knew that, you know, here I am to talk about it. And I'm getting stronger and stronger every day, so that's all I know.